Hello, everybody. Joe Lucey here, Secured Retirement Financial. If you are seeing this, you are watching it as a recorded webinar. We've actually been doing these webinars each and every week, going back to March 23rd, every Monday at noon. And we had some pretty substantial IT issues. So I'm sorry about that. If you tried to attempt to watch the webinar earlier, we were having some feedback issues and some PowerPoint issues, and anyway, so we unfortunately weren't able to do it at our normal time, which I feel terrible about because I know that everybody is. If you took some time to watch this, I apologize that we weren't able to fulfill there. But anyways, I just said a second ago that we've been doing these since March 23rd, which is just about a month ago. And when I started looking at how far things have come in such a short period of time, in just 4 weeks, I was absolutely kind of astonished. But there's some of the news has gotten worse. The actual outlook for retirement planning has probably gotten a little bit better than when we first started these. So I'm going to go through some of those. Ideally today, what I want to make sure that we cover are the 3 planning areas that you need to be looking at in your retirement planning if you're going to be retiring in a COVID environment, right? Or if you're going to be retiring in the next few years, or maybe you've actually got another 10 or 15 years. What are some of those areas that you want to bring into your retirement planning to make sure that you're in good shape? So that's where I ultimately want to go. But, it's been a tough month here, and we all know that we felt the pain a little bit. The social distancing and what have you has not been fun. On the bright side, I was able to get the boat out a little bit over the weekend, which was actually nice. Me and my son spent about 2 or 3 hours. So last week on Friday, they opened up the golf courses and such. So things are starting to look a little bit better. Going back a month ago, March 23rd, we had 35,400 cases nationwide, coronavirus. Now, looks like we have about 770,000 cases. We were 169 cases here in Minnesota. Today we're at 2356. That's actually up 30% higher than we were last week, which is good because because 2 weeks ago I think we were up 3 times from the week over. So it seems to be flattening out, at least in my expert opinion. It seems like things are starting to flatten out, and I think that as we see things opening up and such, we're all going to feel a whole lot better. Now, here's what I find interesting. The Dow Jones, when we first started these on March 23rd, which was only about 2 weeks into when things started really kind of getting crazy and shutting down, maybe 3 weeks, we were at 18,500 on the Dow. Today, we are at about 24,000, and that's today as of March 20th. So things are definitely kind of looking like they are starting to get better, at least if I'm just looking at the stock market itself and what have you. So anyways, we're going to talk about those 3 things to be proactive in your retirement planning, 3 areas that you should be able to look at. Nobody wants to be reactive. We want to be proactive, and that's really what we've been trying to do here in the last 30 days as we started these, and we'll continue to do each and every week as long as we may even continue this past the coronavirus as we start to get back to work, because I actually kind of enjoy spending some time on Mondays going through these. So here's a quick disclaimer. We aren't CPAs. I'm not an attorney. I might talk about some legal stuff. I might even bring up some tax things, but we are comprehensive retirement planners. I'm a certified financial planner. We believe that wealth management is different than what we do. While wealth management is a piece of that, we also understand that if you are only looking at investment strategies and not bringing in tax planning, income planning, you may not have a full plan, a comprehensive plan that addresses all your needs in retirement. So that's kind of what we have built our process on, and I'll talk about that here as we go forward at Secured Retirement Radio or Secured Retirement Financial. We also do the radio program, as many of you know. I know that a lot of you are probably already clients of ours, and some of you have maybe not been clients. Maybe you came in for a visit, and for whatever reason, the timing wasn't right. At the end of today's presentation, I want to make sure that everybody, whether you're a current client or came in once or twice and never became a client, or maybe you've never been in and you just kind of found this through somebody passing this on or whatever, we want to be available. We want to be a resource. So if you'd like to schedule a 15-minute complimentary phone call, just what I call a strategy session, with the ultimate purpose of this 15 minutes is just to identify the number one action step you can take today to put your retirement planning in the best position possible. I'm going to open that up so anybody can do that. Last week we had I think we had 25 or close to 30 of these 15-minute sessions, and I know that a lot of families really got a lot of value out of that. So we want to continue to do that. It's easy for us to do, and make sure that we are in front of you and make sure that you get the answers you need in this difficult time. So with that said, here's the map. We've all seen this. I'm going to kind of move on. I already went through some of the numbers earlier. Here's what the market's done going back to last fall. Going back, I pulled this off of CNBC out of an article this morning, and such. But since last fall, and again, going into early March was when we kind of hit our high. This is on the S&P 500. It hit 3,400, dropped almost down to close to 22. As you can see, it was a 34% drop from the peak. And here we are, all of a sudden, almost recovering back to the 200-day moving average. You can see it's a substantial move. I've said it the whole time, if you're going to try to time the market with everything going on, the market's up 1,000, down 1,000. Even as we speak, I think the market's down about 500 right now. You got to be right twice. You got to be right when you sell and be able to buy back at a lower price. And imagine had you sold that very first day that we did this webinar just 4 weeks ago, what kind of moves we would be leaving on the table. So, with that said, I do want to talk about some things we want to be keeping in front of mind. You need to make sure that you've got an income plan. We got to make sure we have a tax plan. And we got to be looking at all the tools that are out there for us. So what are some things going on this week? Well, number one, the big news this morning was the oil prices are down. They're out of storage. There's no place to even store oil right now, because, well, we're all sheltering in place. We're all at home. Nobody's burning up their oil. And on top of that, you had Russia and Saudi Arabia going at each other, trying to do these little price wars with the oil. So oil is low valued, price-wise anyways, and yet still nobody's filling up the tanks. So there's a surplus. That's only going to make the oil get cheaper. It could end up being something. We got it on our radar. We want to be keeping an eye on the oil prices because we want to see that recover. With that said, maybe there's an opportunity around there for somebody that's looking for that, because I just don't see us moving away 100% from oil when I look out 3 years from now. So something to keep in mind. Other news, 22 million people have lost their jobs since this all started. Now, with that said, we've seen some stimulus, $2.2 trillion in stimulus. There's more coming, sounds like. That's a good news for some of the small business owners. We had the paycheck, oh boy, did I write it down? The paycheck protection stimulus, paycheck protection plan, the stimulus plan that was $350 billion available for small business owners so that they could try to maintain their employees without having to put them on unemployment. It helps the state, it helps the employees, and what have you. It sounds like they're going to have another $240 billion signed sometime soon. I guess that we're going to have to get both sides of Congress and Senate working together to do that. But sounds like that's something that's in the works, and we might see that happen real quick. With that said, $2.2 trillion. That's a lot of borrowing going on. We might want to think about how that's going to impact our retirement going forward. In fact, in just a few minutes, I'm going to tell you about a special event we have coming up that I'm going to invite you to that talks about that, the 2.2 trillion and what it means for your retirement. The other thing is that New York looks like they've kind of, at least now, saying that they have seen kind of the worst. They think they've had their high points. They are thinking that things are looking a lot better. Looking at the numbers, boy, it's crazy how many cases New York has had overbalanced compared to the rest of the country. Even take California with as many people as they have, and they've only had about 1,000 deaths versus New York at 17,000 or thereabouts. Makes you wonder if how everybody's using the same math. But with that said, The stock market is a forward indicator. The markets are going to get better before the coronavirus goes away. I've said that the whole last 30 days. I'll continue to say it. If you're going to try to time the market, you have to be right twice. You have to be right when you sell and buy back lower. And looking at the chart that's in front of you, you can see that, well, sure, there's some opportunities there. Those that have kind of, from the very first time we presented this to now, are doing a heck of a lot better than somebody that tried that got maybe scared out. Now, why did some clients of ours do better than many of the others out there? I think it has to do with planning, and it really comes down to the three things that I think are most important. If we're going to be proactive, number one, we have to have an income plan. We have to know where our income's coming from so we aren't stuck taking money out of a market that just got devastated by 34% like we see on the chart here. Means that we have to have money coming from protected sources, whether that's cash or indexing or any other kind of ways that we can do that. You need to know that you're not exposed to 100% of market risk with money you need to withdraw. Number two, you need to have a tax plan. This $2.2 trillion means that tax planning is even more important. And the third thing is make sure that you're planning, the tools that you're using, the investments that you're using are working based on the planning you're designing. Some of you know this. We purchased a building here at Secured Retirement Financial. We're in the process of doing a lot of blueprints and things. You know what? We're going to let the blueprints tell us how many doors and knobs and where to put things, not just kind of do all the same thing that sometimes we see. So let's, one question you want to ask yourself, where's the market going from here? Well, there's really only three main directions, up, down, or flat. I think we'd all agree with that. So when I'm looking out 3 to 5 years, do we think the markets are going to be up? Are they going to be down? Or are they going to be flat? Maybe more important is not necessarily the question of where do you think markets are going to be in 3 to 5 years. Maybe more important is, does your retirement planning require an uptrending market to be successful? A lot of times we see that families that have their retirement plans built around purely just those investments that require an upward trending market, meaning they don't have an income plan that's going to make sure that biggest risk we have right now is what we call systematic, or not systematic, but sequence of withdrawals risk. Market just gets crushed. I'm forced to take money out. Once that happens, it's a losing proposition. It becomes a spiral effect. I can't get that money back, even if the markets do recover. So do you have a plan in place that's going to allow you to retire securely, comfortably, whether or not the markets go up, down, or flat? Alice in Wonderland, the author Lewis Carroll, might have said it best. He says, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there. In other words, what I'm really trying to say here is focus on the planning. If you're ready to retire, I know that nobody likes to lose money. We don't like to lose money fast. That's even worse. Lots of volatility going on. It's a great time to focus on those three areas that you need to be looking at in your planning so you know that you're on the right road to get you where you want to go. Again, it's income, taxes, and then the making sure you have the right tools. So let's start with income. If you've ever built a house, you know that there's three main components. There's a foundation, walls, and roof. We ask families that are in our office all the time. If you have been in our office, you already know. We say, if you want your retirement to be even better, you need to make sure that you have reliable lifetime sources of income, the foundation. We know that the foundation of any physical structure, a physical house, requires a solid foundation. Without a solid foundation, things crumble. Well, your retirement planning is the same way. 80% of families, when surveyed, do not have a written income plan. And I believe that written income plan needs to be designed around what I call mailbox income, money that hits the checkbook each and every month, regardless of what's going on to Wall Street. I'll never forget, families hire us pretty much for three reasons. Number one, Joe, they say, make sure I got all the income I need because I don't want to cut back on my lifestyle in retirement. Get that. Number two, hey, if I can pay Uncle Sam less, morally, ethically, legally, if I can remove my tax footprint, show me how to do that. The third thing they say is, Joe, if you can increase my wealth, I'd like you to do that because I'd like to maybe leave more for my family, but don't do it sacrificing my income and showing me how to put myself in a better situation tax-wise. If you kind of feel the same way as many of our clients, or if you are a client, schedule that 15-minute review. Let's kind of go through how this worked. That what I call, just a 15-minute strategy session. Number one action step to take right now to make sure you're in the best situation for your retirement going forward. Taxes. First area we want to focus is on income. The next thing we want to look at is taxes. $22 trillion in debt. Can you imagine? I mean, if you go to usdebtclock.org, you would be amazed at how much debt we've taken on in the last 30 to 60 days. It's scary. We're starting to hear about quantitative easing again. Think about how long it took us from 2009 before they were able to start raising interest rates. I hope that they can do it quicker this time than last time, because we need those rates to start to go up. Meaning just too low a rates is never very good. But the problem with that is if we raise rates too much, guess what? All this debt they've taken on is going to increase the amount of national debt, and it's a kind of one of those spiraling looking things. We have a good friend. His name is Marty Ruby. His daughter, Becky Swanberg, is also good friend of ours, but you might know the name Marty Ruby because we had our Tax Freedom Summit here a couple Octobers ago and last spring, where we brought in Marty Ruby to speak. Now, if you haven't been able to see him in person, I would encourage you to watch your email, because we are going to do a special event that's exclusive just to us, where Marty Ruby and his daughter Becky are going to be talking about the direction that they see the market's going. Why should you listen to him? Well, he's an author. He's an actuary. He's a guy that understands how the math of the numbers work in retirement planning. And I'll tell you, it's a really good presentation. We're going to be doing it by Zoom meeting. So look for an email. That'll be out here. And it's exclusive just to us here at Secure Retirement Financial, and those of you that are attending this or those that received the email. But tax planning is really about just trying to take those assets that are sitting aside in retirement accounts, those monies that have never been taxed, and trying to get it to the far right here, getting to tax never. Because of time here today, I'm going to kind of slip past this. We'll spend some more time on this maybe even next week when we do our presentation. So the three areas I wanted to make sure we were focused on today. Number one, income. Looking at taxes. Attend the special presentation we have with Marty Ruby here. And then the third thing is understanding using the right tools. Now, I don't know what you guys think, but the little kid on the left, I think he looks pretty good. That happens to be me. That's probably about 7 years old. Gentleman in the middle is my grandfather. The one on the right, that's my sister. Why did I put my grandfather up here? Well, my grandfather had a big influence in my life. Growing up, my dad was in the service. I'd come back to Minnesota. I'd spend anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks in Minneapolis here, hanging out with my grandfather. Couple things you may not know about my grandfather is that, number one, he was a child of the Depression. He was actually orphaned during the Depression and such. And it's a pretty good story. If you've ever been to one of our dinner presentations or ever heard me speak, you might have heard me talk about him. But this is the guy. This is Harrison. And Harrison probably had the very first man cave ever. I think he invented it. He had a Southwest Minneapolis single-stall garage. It wasn't sheetrock like some of my clients have. It was just a, studs and what have you. But this is where my grandfather tinkered all the time. This is where he spent all of his time. Now, he's a child of the Depression. If you've ever known anybody from the Depression, they never give away anything. They are hoarding, right? I mean, I don't want to use hoarding like in a bad way. He didn't have clutter, but it was, he just never gave away anything. His neighbors knew that. They knew that if they never needed a tool, they could go to Harrison, because Harrison had the best tool case in the world. Again, it was the very first man cave. He spent all his time in there. If he ever needed a tool, he'd buy a tool. My grandfather wanted those tools back. They were very important to him. But he also wanted to make sure he could share with the neighbors. So he'd go ahead and lend the neighbors this tool, but he knew he'd get it back because he'd taken the time to etch his social security number into every tool. Yeah, he really did. With that said, I remember I'm probably about this age here, and I'm sitting down with my grandfather, and we're in the garage, and I'm going through his tool chest. So it's probably driving him nuts, and I'm pulling up, this tool, and I'm saying, Grandpa, what is this? And that was a like a filter wrench, to change the oil in your car. And I said, well, grandfather, what's this? And that's a socket wrench. And this is a vice grips. And I'm going through this. And I said, well, grandpa, what is this? And there's a screwdriver with a little right angle to it. Because that's an offset screwdriver. I said, well, grandfather, what do you need these for? You got all these other screwdrivers. He says, well, if you're ever in a specific situation where you got to get to a tight spot, that's what you need. You see, sometimes I see financial plans. Even with my grandfather, with all the tools he had different tools for different kinds of jobs. Sometimes I see financial plans are really just built around one or two tools. The trick about having a solid financial plan is to make sure that you have the right tools for the job. Let the blueprints tell you what those are. And the only way to find out how to build that blueprint is to go back to what we started with earlier. Let's have a plan in place. If you're a client of ours and you need to review that, take advantage of the 15 minutes. If you are not a client of ours and you would like to find out more about how we do that, we have a 15-minute strategy session that we can go over with you, making sure we're using the right tools for the job. With a hammer you can build, with the hammer you can destroy. The hammer it's not whether or not the hammer is a good or bad tool, it's how that tool gets used in your own retirement planning, the investments, right? So with that said, we started off with a quote by Lewis Carroll. If you don't know where you're going, then any path is going to get there. Real question is coming back to the definition of financial planning. It's making sure that the financial path that you're on is leading you to the destination you want to arrive at. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see that there's your opportunity to schedule the 15 minutes. Again, whether you're a client of ours or not, I encourage you to schedule some time, especially if you have any questions you want to go over the idea behind this 15-minute session. Find the number one action step you can take right now to put yourself in a better situation financially. With that said, I apologize for all the issues we had early on, and we'll be back next Monday at noon. So put that on your calendar. Hopefully you can join us. We'll give you an update on where we're at with the coronavirus and anything else. And then also look for this email on Tuesday. And if you haven't already and you want 15 minutes, schedule that. Click that button at the bottom and schedule your 15-minute session with us. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your week. Stay healthy. Wash your hands. And we'll be back next Monday at noon.